Hi everyone, welcome to our next video on SAT verbal hacks. Let's see what kind of problem we have today. All right, so immediately we know that this is going to be a multiple text question. There's only one type of problem that has two texts like this. So we know that we're going to be comparing them in some way. Let's read the question first to see how we are doing so. So based on the text, what would the author of text 2 most likely say about text 1's characterization of the discovery involving EGR? All right, so these questions are always comparing the text in some way, but this question is specifically asking us about text 1's characterization of the discovery involving EGR and how text 2 would respond to that. So let's keep that in mind as we read. So text 1, most animals can regenerate some parts of their body, such as skin. But when a three-banded panther worm is cut into 3 pieces, each piece grows into a new worm. Researchers are investigating this feat partly to learn more about humans' comparatively limited abilities to regenerate, and they're making exciting progress. An especially promising discovery is that both humans and panther worms have a gene for early growth response linked to regeneration. Okay, so pausing for a second to think about this one. Seems optimistic about this finding of regeneration, that both these worms and humans have this same gene for early growth response that would allow them to regenerate similarly. Okay, so then text 2. When Manzi Srivatstava and her team reported that panther worms, like humans, possess a gene for EGR, it caused excitement. However, as the team pointed out, the gene likely functions very differently in humans than it does in panther worms. Srivatstava has likened EGR to a switch that activates other genes involved in regeneration in panther worms, but how the switch operates in humans remains unclear. All right, so this passage is also mentioning that same conclusion and the excitement that it caused, that both panther worms and humans have this gene for regeneration that would be helpful for comparing them. But this team does point out a downside, which is that we aren't really sure how this gene functions in humans. We know how it functions in worms, but we're not really sure how to activate the switch, as they call it, in humans. Okay, so thinking about how text 2 would respond to text 1, definitely in agreement, right? Overall agreement, but kind of adding on a little bit of a concession of that agreement, okay? So let's look at our choices and do some process of elimination. So A, it is reasonable given that Srivatstava and her team have identified how EGR functions in both humans and panther worms. Okay, so nothing seems outwardly incorrect in that answer, maybe not super specific, so let's look at our other choices. B, it is overly optimistic given additional observations from Srivatstava and her team. This one seems like a good choice. So definitely agreeing with it, but getting a finger on that fact that it is a little bit overly optimistic because they have found additional observations about that initial kind of conclusion that they want to expand on and give that kind of concession that it might not work the way they want it to. But let's double check with our other two choices just to see. C, it is unexpected given that Srivatstava and her team's findings were generally met with enthusiasm. So unexpected, there's nothing unexpected mentioned in text 2. Again, generally it's in agreement. And then D, it is fairly dismissive given that progress that Srivatstava and her team have reported. Again, text 2, text 1, not negative at all, so there's no dismissive connotations in that text. All right, so then between A and B, B is definitely going to be the more specific one, talking about the fact that it's a little bit overly optimistic because there are some things that they still don't know, so we can't, proclaim to the world yet that this is going to work and can tell us about regeneration in humans. All right, so B is definitely going to be the right choice. Follow us for more.